Hello brothers and sisters, welcome to another episode on Dangerous African Confessions HD. Today we have a story from our brother. In this captivating story, he shares with us his deepest scar in his heart. His sad story is about how he got to know that he is not the biological father of his two children, but rather his church elder is actually their father. As usual, I won't mention real name, so I've edited the names to hide the identity of the people involved. Without wasting much of your time, let's go and listen to the story.
Hello brother, my name is John, and I am 44 years old. I've been married to my wife for the past 8 years now. And we live here in Accra, the capital city of Ghana. When I married my wife, things were not all perfect for me. But she stood by me in everything that I went through. My wife never stopped advising me about how much of importance it is to always go before going prayers. This was the perfect woman for me. God knew my life journey, what I would be passing through, and provided me with such a wonderful woman. My wife, upon all that she did at home, being the good wife that she is, also never neglected her duties at church. She was an usher in the church. In fact, it was a blessing to have her. There was this elder at church that I will say I looked up to. There was something nice about him. He was just cool. His name was Elder John. We always called his name attached to the position he occupied. In fact, we were calling every elder like that. So, it wasn't only him. You will always notice him being the first amongst all the elders to come to church early. I really did admire that about him. I had always thought of him as a kind and wise man, someone I could always turn to for advice or guidance. As the weeks went by, I found myself spending more and more time with Elder John when we closed from church, seeking comfort and solace in his presence. He always seemed to know the right things to say and was a pillar of strength in my life. It even got to a time that he was more like a counselor to us in our marriage. Any issue that was above us, we took to him to help us solve them. This, I would say, made me have such respect and love for him. But then everything changed. This man shattered my hopes and belief in the church system. How could a man I trust so much do this to me? It all started when my wife traveled to a conference. It was a business conference with her work colleagues. It didn't resist her going, because for being such a good wife, that was the least I could do for her. Our last-born Kelvin fell ill and needed to be taken to the hospital for treatment. Upon medical checkups, the doctor told me that my son needed a blood transfusion. He said they didn't have blood in the blood bank at that moment, so as his father, I opted to donate my blood for him. After all, he is my son, so definitely our blood will match. So, samples of my blood were collected and checked to see if there are no problems with my blood. It came that there were no problems. But then one thing that followed was that my blood and my son's blood do not match. This was not possible. The doctor told me to come down and get blood in order to save my son first. So, he made a call to one hospital and had a discussion with the doctor, who said they can get me the blood. So, I paid for the blood and my son received the transfusion. The doctor asked where my wife was and I told him she has traveled and will be spending a week there. After everything, I asked for a DNA test to be done on my son to see if I am the father. I didn't understand why our blood were not compatible. This decision, I didn't tell my wife. My wife had returned from the trip and I told her about our son's sickness. But then, I didn't tell her about our blood not matching. So, I received a phone call that would change everything. It changed the home I knew was perfect. It also changed how I saw my wife.
Please kindly subscribe, share and like our videos. Kindly hit the notification bell so you will be the first to get notification to our videos when we upload. Thank you, and let's get back to the story.
So, I received a phone call that would change everything. It changed the home I knew was perfect. It also changed how I saw my wife. The DNA test I had taken for my child had come back, revealing an unexpected result. I wasn't the father of my own son. I was in shock. How could this be possible? So, it meant, my wife has been sleeping with other men behind my back. These were questions running through my mind. I was torn between feelings of anger, betrayal, and confusion. How could someone I had trusted so much do this to me? I came home feeling betrayed. It was drawn all over me. Honestly, I couldn't control or hide the pain. My wife noticed the change in my attitude around the house. She asked what was the problem. I didn't mind her the first time she asked me. She asked again the second time in the evening. I told her, a friend is owing me a huge sum of money and the expected time for the payment is due and he is making excuses. She said I shouldn't let such issue affect me in the house, especially when the children are around. I wanted to slap the hell out of her when she said that. But I kept my cool. I got up and walked away from her, in order not for her to provoke me with her words. The next morning, I made a decision to go and do another check on my older son. I wanted to be sure and know the next line of action for me. I took my boy to the hospital. I had all our necessary samples taken. The results came and this broke me down. This one too was not my blood. I was not his biological father. It meant all the 2 children I boast of with in front of my friends are not mine. How on earth could my wife do this to me? She doesn't look like it at all. So, my wife had been in other romantic relationships. The thought of me not being the biological father of my children was mind-boggling. I confronted my wife about it, and at first, she denied it. We were in bed and I woke her up from sleep. I asked her to tell me if after our marriage she had seen someone else. She laughed and brushed it off, saying I wasn't serious to even think about such a thing. She decided to go back to sleep but I told her not to. Sensing how serious I was, she got up and sat on the bed resting her head on the headboard. I asked her again if she was seeing someone or she had been in a relationship with any other man after we got married. She said no, went ahead to ask me why I am asking her all those questions. I told her I will explain to her. But then, I needed her to answer some questions first. So, I asked her again if she was with someone before we met. She said, I already know everything about her life before we got together. She was getting angry as I asked the questions. This pushed me to go straight with my findings. I asked her again that are the 2 children mine. She said she would never talk again since to her, I was hurting her with my questions. So, I went to where I kept the envelope and brought the results. I gave her the results for her to read. I told her she should explain to me when she finishes reading what was on the paper. She asked where I got the results from. So, I took time and explained to her how our blood was not a match, so there was the need for the DNA test to be done to know why that development. And since the first results proved I was not the father, I decided to go for the second one. That one also proved that I am not the father. I told her I needed an explanation. She said, that was not possible. There is no way I was not the father of the children. Honestly, I don't know what held me from punching her when she said the results were not correct. In order to restrain myself from not taking the law into my own hands, I decided to step out of the house and go spend the night in a friend's house. Before leaving, I told her to get me an explanation when I return. When I got to my friend Evans's house, he asked why I am in such a mood. I was all teary. I told him I wanted to just sleep and we would talk in the morning. His girlfriend was not around, so he asked me to go sleep in his bedroom instead of the guest room. In the morning when I woke up, I told Evans everything. He was totally shocked. But then, he asked me to do the test again in the presence of my wife so that everything would be clearer to her. This I felt was a good idea, so I called my wife on the phone and I told her to get the kids ready. We went to the hospital to get the test done again. At this point, I didn't care about the cost. All I wanted was answers from my wife. And if doing it again will help me get answers, I was ready to go through with it.
I will leave you here. As I always say, these are not just stories for story's sake. They are meant for us not to make these mistakes our brothers and sisters are making. That's why we share these stories with you. Please let's be mindful of the choices that we make, because they can go a long way to turn and hurt us in the future. Now, how will the children see you, the mother? And how would they live to come to terms with the fact that the man they've known all these years is not their biological father? Stay blessed and be safe. Thanks for being a part of this growing family. Kindly share your thought with us in the comment section below. And if you are new here, please subscribe, like and share.